It was an unseasonably warm February day in 2017 in the small rural town of Delphi, Indiana. It's not a place where you worry when your teenage kids decide to go on an adventure. So when Abby Williams and her best friend Libby German decided to go on a hike near the Monon High Bridge in the middle of the day, no one thought it was dangerous. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry. And they began to search. Then the next day, the worst possible news. The bodies of these two young girls were found, both victims of murder. As the investigation progressed over 5 years, there were sketches of the suspect that looked like two different people. And there was also video of the killer. Then, finally, an arrest of the accused murderer, Richard Allen. Allen says he didn't do it, and he also alleges it was a group of Odinites who were actually responsible, white nationalists practicing the ancient Nordic religion. Images of the murder scene have been sealed, but have been described in court papers and leaked online. And all this has led to more drama and more arrests in the case. Tonight, we return to the scene and bring you all the latest legal controversy as we continue our investigation of the Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And this investigation, this story, what's going to be this trial, the Delphi murder case, since the arrest and since this case was, according to investigators, solved, things have gotten a lot more complicated. And it was already a very complicated case. So tonight we're going to try to walk through some of that to make it a little, to kind of bring you up to speed so you can understand what is happening and what's at issue right now in this incredible, incredible tragedy. Because it begins with two best friends, Abby and Libby. Two young girls who were just going out for a hike. It was a day off from school. And they were just being kids. They were literally being kids. Like, hey, let's go for a... How many of you, when you were young, let's go. Let's just go, you know, let's go for a walk, go in the woods, go exploring, go for a hike, go... Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. How badly do we want our children to do that, right? Get away from the phones, get away from the video games, and get outside. And that's what they were doing on an unseasonably warm day in Indiana in the winter. They were murdered. It was a horrible, horrible crime scene, the way it's been described. Horrible what happened to these best friends. And it took 5 years. And 5 years later, Richard Allen was arrested. Now, based upon the evidence that's been made public in some documents and arrest affidavit, my personal opinion is this case should have been solved like within a month, based upon the information, because a lot of the information that they used to get to Richard Allen and to accuse Richard Allen was really available very, very early on. But that being said, it didn't happen, and eventually they did. Go back and take a look at some reports, and they tracked him down, and they gathered what they believe is enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he is the killer. Now's when things get much more complicated. First, relative to the charges. The defense has said no. He's 100% innocent. Not that you don't have enough evidence to prove it. He's factually innocent, and we know who did it. The Odinists did it. The Odinists, these local people, whether they're, I don't know, loosely affiliated or part of some local cult or religion that worship Odin, the ancient Nordic god, predates Christianity. And they believe the Odinists did it based upon several parts of their theory, including what the crime scene looked like, the way the bodies were, the way some sticks were arranged around there, some other information from different witnesses from the state's own investigation that they uncovered. All of that, they say, is pointing in one direction, that the Odinists did it. So that's one part of this that has gotten very complicated, because there were investigators who were believing the same thing that the defense is putting out there now. There was a big investigative team, but a couple of the investigators were really following up on the odinous evidence related to this tragic double murder. So that's complicated, you know, what actually happened to Libby and Abby. But now there's also legal drama, which has made the case even more complicated now, because there were some, and they've been very good, I guess is the word, about keeping information from the public, whether it's investigators, prosecutors, and now the court, sealing things and not letting information out. And some photos from the crime scene leaked out, and it was traced back to the defense team. Not the lawyers that did it, but someone who went into their office and took snapshots, screenshots of a computer screen, and then disseminated those shots, those images out there. And some of you may even have seen them online. But all of this has led to problems with the defense team resigning or being coerced to get off the case. And now whether or not the judge should be presiding over this case, whether Richard Allen should have the attorneys who put out the odinous theory or should have new attorneys, it's all up in the air and it's very complicated. So let's go back in time. Let's go to October 19th, 2023. First time here at Court TV that we've got cameras inside of a trial court in Indiana, and the judge came out on the bench and this happened.
We've had an unexpected turn of events, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier this afternoon, the defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. Mr. Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw. I granted that oral motion to withdraw, and Mr. Rosie will be submitting a written motion to withdraw, I'm assuming within the next couple of days.
So those attorneys want back on the case. They are claiming that they were coerced into resigning from the case by the judge in a meeting just before that hearing that day, that she was going to take them off the case and publicly put on the record that they were not competent to represent Richard Allen. But they want back on the case, and Richard Allen wants him back on the case, but the judge wants him off the case. And now this has become a legal mess and a case with Richard Allen filing papers and the attorneys filing papers. And now the Supreme Court of Indiana is going to hear it. There's a hearing coming up on January 18th at the State House in Indianapolis. Richard Allen wants his original defense team reinstated. He wants the judge, Judge Frances Gull, replaced, and wants a new trial date, speedy trial, within 70 days. So he's saying, I want my lawyers back, I want the judge gone, and I want this trial, you know, in 2 months, within 2 months. Now, Richard Allen's attorney says, because he's locked up, he says, Allen will not be attending the hearing. Here's a statement from Richard Allen's attorney representing him in the case to try to get his attorneys back on his other case. I told you it's complicated. We have not asked for Mr. Allen to be transported to the Supreme Court hearing, nor do we intend to ask for him to be transported. We also confirmed with the Indiana Supreme Court services this morning that no one at the court has arranged for Mr. Allen to be transported there. And that's from Cara Weinecke, Richard Allen's attorney, for the purposes of him trying to get his criminal defense attorneys back on his case. I need some help. Let me bring in my guest joining us tonight from Indianapolis, Indiana, hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee are with us. Make sure you download it after the show. You'll be up to date everything that's happening in this case. Also joining us, he knows everything about the case too, in Chicago, Illinois, criminal defense attorney, host of Defense Diaries. Need to listen to that as well. Bob Motta is with us. Welcome everyone. You know, I've never covered a case that got more and more complicated after the arrest. You know, it was a case that, like, what was going on with the investigation? No one's been charged. It's been 5 years. And then there's an arrest, and then everything gets like, wow, what is going on here? So Anya and Kevin, let me start with you first. Let's go back to that. Before we get to the hearings that are coming up, let's just go back to the leak of those pictures. So who got in trouble for that? Who is facing punishment for the leak of those photos, and what impact has it had on the lawyers representing, or that were representing, Richard Allen in all of this?
So it's a great question, Vinny. So this leak was traced back to a man named Mitch Westerman, and he doesn't dispute this. He signed an affidavit saying, I came into my friend Andrew Baldwin's office, saw these pieces of discovery sitting on a table, I photographed them and disseminated them. So that's what he's admitting to. He is the former friend and operations manager for Baldwin, and so he is facing a charge of criminal conversion for what he did and what he admits to doing. He has pled not guilty, so his case is pending. And in fact, there will be a hearing in this case, a pretrial hearing on the same day as the Indiana Supreme Court hearing. So that's all still pending. He's pleading not guilty, but essentially his actions led to this ultimate dispute between Judge Gull and the two original defense attorneys, because that was what seemingly kicked off this impasse where they say that she forced them to withdraw. She says they withdrew. And so this whole leak has really derailed things to a large degree, and the impact continues to be felt because things have gotten so delayed.
All right, Bob Mata, you have been practicing law for some time. You've been in a lot of courtrooms. You file a lot of cases. You litigate a lot of cases. So I personally have never seen anything where attorneys who want to represent a defendant and a defendant that wants those attorneys to represent him is not permitted to do so. I haven't seen it. It may have happened before under some circumstances. Have you ever seen anything like this, and what's your take legally on how this has played out so far?
Oddly enough, yeah. My spouse and law partner, Allison Mata, was removed from Anthony Garcia's case in Omaha, Nebraska, but we were pro hoc vice. Which means that we had basically send an application to the court saying, can we come in and try this case because we're not licensed in Nebraska. So there, what they did, and it was very similar. It was a real war between the state and the defense. And Allison had gone on to a news station and made a statement, and there wasn't a gag in that case, but it was close to the trial. The judge didn't like it. We felt that we were in the safe harbor, which we were trying to even the playing field in terms of the bad press that was coming out. But in that case, it was different in the sense that they just had to pull her ticket, her pro hoc vice ticket, in terms of an attorney of choice, which at the point that Baldwin and Rosie entered their appearance pro bono, they were no longer appointed counsel. And I think, my opinion is that it's structural error, that if, in fact, the Supreme Court does not reinstate them and they go to trial, I think it's just going to be a test run. I think that Richard Allen will absolutely get another trial because his attorney of choice was pulled out of the case. So, no, I haven't seen this exact scenario ever, to be honest with you, Vinny.
Amazing that your wife had a situation somewhat similar, but not exactly the same. All right, so Kevin, where does the judge stand right now in all of this? And is it true that she has taken on some sort of a new position on the bench?
Yeah, the judge in this case has been accused by the original defense team of Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie of being biased against them. That they maintain that she treated them unfairly throughout the process. And so they're asking for her to be removed from the case. And that is a decision that ultimately is going to be made by the Indiana Supreme Court. Meanwhile, she has recently been chosen by her peers in Allen County, Indiana, to be the head judge of Allen County, which at the very least is a sign of the respect and esteem that her peers clearly hold her in. And
do we suspect that this new position would prevent her from doing this case, or are they? You can do both. You can be the head and continue with these cases. Do we know?
She could do both. It's primarily an administrative position. You know, the business that has to be done by judges in a particular county, things of that nature. She would be handling that. It wouldn't be a problem for her to do that and also continue to be in charge of the Richard Allen case, assuming she's not removed by the Supreme Court.
All right. So, Bob, what gut tell you about how these arguments will play out at the Supreme Court of Indiana in all of this? It's somewhat unusual, I would think. You have Richard Allen, you know, trying to get the judge removed. If she's not removed, now he's, you know, on trial in a court with a judge who knows that the defendant wants her off the case. I mean, the whole thing is awkward, however it plays out.
It's extremely awkward, and it puts the high court in Indiana in an awkward position as well. You know, ultimately how I think it'll play out is that I think, to be honest, I think that Baldwin and Rosie will probably get reinstated just because of that issue of structural error. You know, I mean, when you break it down to them entering their pro bono appearance, it changed the analysis. Had they not done that, and then they tried to file, I don't think that there's any way that they would have been reinstated, because the law of the land at this juncture is really that appointed counsel, you can't really pick and choose them. And if she chose to remove them, then that's that. But once they became his actual counsel of choice, it really changed the analysis. And I think that the court's not going to be thrilled about doing it. But I think in terms of just for appearance sake, to keep Judge Gull on would just, it would create issues for the public in terms of perception, because anytime the defense would file any kind of motion, and if she denies it, then the public's all going to say, oh, well, you know, she's biased, and whether she is or she isn't. You know, perception is everything in cases like this, and there's the eyes of the world are on this case at this point. You know, so I think that it's a tough task. I'm very confident the arguments are going to be strong on both sides. I think they both have competent counsel in there, and I think that they're all ready to go, and it's going to be a huge day in court.
So, Anya and Kevin, how is this playing? Because, I mean, Delphi, I still haven't been there. I've got to get out there, but it's small community. Obviously, the biggest story ever. This will be the biggest trial ever in this area. And yet all these things that are very unusual are happening, from taking 5 years to be solved, to the legal complications, to this allegation that there's some Odinist cult in the area as well. So how is this playing with folks out there? Like, is there some sense of, hey, we need to get this thing under control, or?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that the Delphi case seems to be one of those cases that's just unfortunately had a lot of bad breaks at every turn. And a lot of those breaks or choices seem to be almost designed to spur conspiracy theories, spur speculation, spur a lot of stuff that's not terribly helpful. And I think there's definitely a sense within not only the real life Delphi community, but also the Delphi community that's cropped up online amongst people who want justice and want to see the case solved, or want justice for the girls. I think there's a sense that things are out of control and have been that way for a while. I'd say there's all sorts of different views out there. And the thing that I see consistently in this situation is sympathy for the families of these girls, because not only do they have to now contend with the fact that graphic crime scene photos are are out there and could feasibly pop up, but now things are delayed. And that's not an outcome anybody wanted, not people who are on the defense side, not people on the prosecution side. It's just very unfortunate, I would say. And I think people are kind of in that space of realizing that this is just not good.
No, and you're so right. For families to go through all of this, right? It's been 5 years of heartache waiting for an answer. And now things are like, you got to be looking like, what is going on here? What is going on? And the delay is real. Especially if he has new attorneys, there's no way they can be ready quickly. And we will continue, obviously, to stay in contact with Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast. Download it. You learn everything you need to know about this case, and you get more analysis from Bob Mata in the Defense Diaries. Thank you all so much, and we'll speak again, I'm sure, really, really soon. Thanks so much.